Hello and welcome to the 3PO Summit. I'm Anthony Smith, Chief Economist here at FreightWaves, and I am excited about this fireside chat. I get to chat with one of the leading innovators and really, I think, thought leaders within this industry, and that is Will Kerr, CEO of Edge Logistics. Will, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anthony. I'm excited to be here.
So, well, there's just so much to jump into, and I'm just going to dive right into it. Starting top of mind, the market has definitely been significantly impacted and changed over the last few months. I can only imagine, we've seen a huge shift since, of course, the midst of the pandemic to, of course, some of the volumes that we saw in 2022. Now going into 2023, it's just a different market altogether. Just at a high level, kicking this off real quick, can you talk to some of the different changes and some of the different dynamics that we're seeing going into 2023?
Yeah, sure. I mean, really starting last March, the market started to dramatically change from a really carrier power market to more of a shipper powered market. That happened pretty dramatically from like February, March into April, May last year, and then continued to really, you know, shrink down the opportunity throughout the rest of the season. And then this year, with the new contract rates resetting, right about right now, starting as early as mid-February and continuing to roll out on almost a weekly basis over the course of our portfolio and the greater American economy. We're seeing that again, where rates have dropped again. Um, Rate per mile is lower. The higher length of haul freight is extremely competitive, both from brokers and from asset competitors. And yeah, the revenue per load, or what I like to call the revenue dynamics of the market, have gotten less favorable. Just from a traditional perspective for both brokers and carriers. But yeah, that's just the reality of the cycle, and the cycles have been getting faster. The swings have been getting larger and more dramatic in the last 5 or 6 years. While we didn't really see it coming last year, we definitely saw it coming this year. So we were a lot more prepared to adjust our strategy and our portfolio and the way that we approach customers on a case by case basis to more fit with what we predict the market will be like this year.
And I think that's a great point. I mean, really kind of anticipating market shifts because, of course, as an economist, that's really one of my primary things, being able to forecast what's going to happen and really how to best prepare for it ahead of time. One of the big things that's also had a huge shift within the market dynamics was around labor. Well, can you tell us a little bit about some of the difficulties or some of the challenges or some of the strategies that you've had around sourcing that labor, especially going into this year?
For us, if you're talking about edge employees, I think we're in an awesome market for sourcing right now. We've gone through a period of tremendous consolidation over the last 5 years, where many of the legacy players that we at Edge really modeled ourselves after have been bought and sold at least one or two times since like the heyday of the 15 to 18 market. And with that, employees who were star players in a lot of those shops, facing myriad of different challenges, with different ownership groups, different bosses, being consolidated into pre-existing workforce where maybe there's some client or carrier overlap. And then more recently, throughout this down cycle, a lot of the bigger freight brokerages have, done some pretty aggressive cost-cutting measures, both in terms of layoffs or right sizing, like I like to call it, or commission cuts or comp changes to realign their sales forces, their legacy sales forces, their high income sales forces with the current customer or company needs, which would be new business growth. So we've seen a lot of that going on, and for us, as a smaller but heavy punching broker, it's perfect because we're able to go attract a lot of those guys who want to get back into the smaller, more nimble, more customer centric, carrier centric brokerages. Where we're less concerned about who's who's getting what money and more concerned about growth. You know?
And I'm glad that you mentioned that nimbleness of it all, because I think that's really the big thing. Because you think about some of the advantages of really being able to adapt to different markets. And also, I like the right sizing terminology as well. I might have to use that one myself. But when we're looking at really strategies to bring in maybe larger shipper enterprise shippers, what kind of strategies are you looking to implement from that perspective?
On a market in a market like this, which we think we'll be in until at least mid next year, you have to really lean into the contract rate. If you're going to have any shot at growing, at beating last year's top line, you're going to have to do a whole lot more loads, and you're going to have to do them via contract freight. So that's what we've been really focused on is leaning into the contract. We've bitten off some really big deals from some of our best and most relationship driven shippers, where they bet on us to be one of their workhorses this season. And then we've also been really successful with new business, going in and approaching the shippers from a contract perspective. And when I say contract freight, I mean having real capacity. Going into these contracts with trucking companies, with fleets of trucks, with drop trailer, with preload, all that kind of stuff, that can keep your freight out of the day of market. If you're going to go in and just try to undercut well-established carrier networks on a price perspective because you think you need more freight, but your plan is to just post and play and book it transactionally, you're going to get eaten alive in a year like this. So what you need to do is you got to get freight that you actually cover, carriers that you actually know, like, and trust, and they know, like, and trust you back. And you go into these contract negotiations with trailers in hand, and you buy freight for them, and then they pick it up and deliver it, kind of outside of the market. And when you do that, you can keep your board real clean. You can do a lot of volume. You can do a lot of loads per rep. And you can get a lot of the efficiency that you lose when you don't have the revenue per load. You know, whenever revenue per load crashes, it destroys margin opportunity. And when you have less margin opportunity, you have to execute at a much higher level. And that's what we're really focused on here.
And well, one of the things that you mentioned that I really think was a great point as well was really, I think where that dynamic or the power laid, of course, that pendulum always shifts back and forth between carriers and shippers. And we've seen that pendulum swing a few times throughout the last couple of years here. When we're thinking about current conditions, of course, the one mainstay that always remains the same is relationships. That seems to be a constant within this industry during these tighter conditions right now, when it terms and volume and really a lot of capacity seeming to be on the market. Where does really kind of the pendulum lie in terms of keeping clients happy, and really what kind of strategies do you use to help keep that, those relationships going?
Yeah, I mean, when the market's tight and expectations raise, we are currently in an environment where the status quo for customer service and the expectations, both for trucking companies, national trucking corporate companies, as well as freight brokers, have never been higher. We're our customer service expectations pretty much across the board are above 95% on-time delivery, above 99% tender acceptance, perfect EDI and billing and transparency in terms of visibility and real-time GPS location. All of that is expected now. It's not a nice to have. So when you're sourcing customers and when you're trying to keep customers happy, as you say, it's really important that you have a good case fit with the shipper and the broker. For us at Edge, not all customers are good fits for us. We require customers that have a certain amount of volume where we can get a big enough opportunity where the efficiencies that we can bring can really show in the data over customers that do one load here or one load there that are very price driven. We're not going to be a really good fit for in this market. We're trying to bring a more dynamic solution that serves a more elite ship. And when we talk to customers, we try to discover that early on, so to see if that we have a real opportunity. In a hot market, that could be a lot different. And our portfolio of which customers are doing well and which customers are a little bit more margin challenged tend to be totally different in a hot market or contract heavy market. And it's important to have both of those in your portfolio. But we've always been really focused on customers and shippers that see the value of consistent performance, see the value of growth over time, and want the same carriers picking up and delivering their same load over and over and over.
Well, I think that's a brilliant point there that not a lot of folks kind of take into consideration. And that's really around making sure that they are a right fit for you and your business, because that makes the world of difference. Instead of just accepting every single thing that comes your way, can really drive down efficiency. So I love that point. When we're looking at really threats to brokerages, do you see anything right now that could be a significant threat to a thriving, growing brokerage?
Well, I mean, the things that you always worry about are making huge mistakes in terms of like compliance or something like that, like some just disaster scenario. That is one, and then I think one that a lot of folks are dealing with right now is customer consolidation. Pretty much every shipper I talk to, one of their organizational goals is to cut down the amount of brokers that they're working with, which is not a great thing for the brokerage community. So I think there's a lot of people who are taking big steps back with clients right now. And if you want to continue to be rewarded, this year and in the years to come, you have to really, really come through in this type of market, and you're gonna have to find ways to bring value and problems to solve.
And of course, speaking of threats or maybe even opportunities, what are some of the things that you see really kind of facing the 3PL industry as a whole? I know there's tons of talks around different types of regulation. Does anything come to your mind when you think of regulation, or maybe when you think of automation or technology?
So I'm a huge advocate of automation and technology enablement in freight brokerage. I believe that we're just at the precipice of the early adopter phase of the technology adoption life cycle. We're approaching the chasm, and it's going to be awesome to see which brokerages are able to cross through that really, really important period of our industry. From a regulatory perspective, there's been a lot of talk about like rate transparency and all that. Honestly, if people want to see how freight brokerage margins look, have at it. It's in a hyper efficient marketplace. Brokers, believe it or not, have almost no control over the rate environment. We compete against both carriers and other brokers in every bid that we do. We hardly ever control more than 5% of a shipper's portfolio. It's a hyper efficient marketplace, and it's based on supply. The other thing is we don't make fixed margins. You know what I mean? Like for every load I make $200 on, there's a load I lost $200 on. So I think if the light is shined on what freight brokerage P&Ls look like, I think there will be an even greater appreciation for what we do. But we'll see. It'll be kind of fun to see what shakes out there. But for Congress and the Fed to try to blame brokerage for the rates crashing is a complete joke when this is a Fed-induced recession. And the only reason why rates are crashing is because interest rates are rising. So, if they really cared about the trucking companies or the brokers or the truck drivers who are enjoying an inflated rate environment during a period of tremendous inflation that the American consumer had to pay for, then they should just be honest about what their plan is to crush the rate environment of transportation to kill inflation. But to shine a light on us and say that like, we're bad actors is a joke. And I bet there are some small very fly by night folks in this business who take advantage of people. But anybody in the top 100, anybody in the top 200 is normally going to be forced to run a really because it's just too fast. The freight moves so fast. There's not enough time to be a scumbag. It's all about trying to make things happen and trying to do more and go faster. I think in terms of big threats to the progress of the industry, I think fraud is the number one thing that's holding back freight, both for shippers, for carriers and for brokers and other areas. We spend so much time, so many resources, so much money on trying to prevent fraud, and by trying to identify and eliminate fraud. And fraud is both, from a criminal, like a double brokering or like a cargo theft and all that kind of stuff. But it's also just fraudulent participation. It's fraudulent capacity commitments. It's paper rates. It's putting in fake pricing. It's all over the place in our industry. And until we're able to get to a point through data-driven decision making and digital identity footprints, where we can really prevent that stuff on an individual broker to broker basis, we get buy-in from the greater brokerage community. It's going to continue to be a threat. Once we're able to move past fraud as a threat in freight brokerage and in transportation, that's when we're going to get to the dawn of real digital transformation and automation, where we're going to really be able to change the industry forever and improve the American quality of life through excellence in supply chain.
Well, some absolutely amazing points being made there. And of course, when you're speaking interest rates and inflation, you are definitely speaking my language. And I definitely agree this fraud aspect is a huge issue that we have to kind of deal with and get around and move past. And I'm sure we can have another entire fireside chat around those topics altogether, but that's going to bring us to the end of this one. If people want to reach out to you, learn more about Edge Logistics, how can they do that?
EdgeLogistics.com. You can contact us there or email me at wkerr@edgelogistics.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Keep watching because there's more 3PL content coming up.